Prompted by Councilmember Laster on behalf of Councilmember Martin. Does either of you wish to speak to your motion?
Actually, Mayor, I want to do the council a favor, and I'm going to withdraw item number 9, so we can move item 9 and 10, because, and if I may just go ahead and speak to item number 10.
I'll cue you up first for item number 10, but are you formally withdrawing
Yes, ma'am.
Laster 5? That item has been withdrawn.
Which is matrix item number 9.
Moving to the next item, which is listed as insurance, Laster 6 on behalf of Martin. Councilmember Laster.
Mayor, I'll just simply say, the discussion we've had here over the last multiple minutes is very important, and that is the groundwork for moving to this 24/7 insurance. It's vital for public protection. I think we've covered much of that, but to the extent that we haven't, I'd like to defer my time to Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Councilmember Laster. I'm not sure what else needs to be stated, but correct me if I'm wrong. We heard through public comments that this policy is now in place in New York City. Is that correct?
That is not correct.
Okay, so a couple of people then told us erroneous information.
What New York City actually did, there hasn't been a new ordinance in New York City at all addressing TNCs. We talked to the city of New York, and they said what happened was when Lyft went in, they were barred from operating, so they went and bought an existing livery company. So they're operating very much like an Uber Black. They're using existing permitted drivers, existing permitted vehicles, and the existing commercial insurance that existed with that company. It's not something new. It's not what we have here.
Existing commercial insurance, correct?
Just like a fleet vehicle.
Okay, because the big difference between Costello and Martin is commercial versus personal. So just wanted to get that on the record. Also, just to tie a little bow around this takes care, as we just mentioned in Costello, this takes care of street hails, of taxis or TNCs, off apps, or anything that could come in the way of using a personal cell phone versus going on the application. And I think the 24/7, 365 makes perfect sense in the essence of public safety and making sure that we do the right thing. So appreciate it.
Councilmember Costello.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, for giving me, both council members for giving me a better appreciation of what it is. But Director, I'm going to ask several questions of you. When, for instance, let's talk about Uber. When the app's on and the driver is covered, that's commercial insurance. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The current taxi industry, what type of insurance coverage do they have?
Commercial.
What levels?
All vehicles for hire have 24/7 insurance, but there's really not a term in insurance with 24/7 insurance, so that's sort of a misnomer. But that insurance travels with the vehicle, so that if you have, for example, a taxi driver who hits somebody on his way home from work, then that's covered under his commercial insurance with the vehicle.
Okay. Are some of these companies self-insured?
Yes. The largest taxi cab company is self-insured.
Self-insured. The question I have also, I want to follow up with a prior question from one of my colleagues. On the independent operator, how are they covered?
Most of them will be provided the insurance by the company, and when they lease their vehicle and they pay their weekly lease or monthly lease, a portion of that cost is included in that lease.
Okay. I feel a little concerned about 24/7 commercial coverage on this ride share issue. Because I feel like it's a barrier to the entry of the market. I'm not quite sure about the expense. The expense could be anything depending upon, obviously, the driver's past experience. So I'm not real clear whether or not I want to support that or not, but I'd still like to hear some more discussion here at the table. Thank you.
Councilmember Costello, may I take a minute of your time? The additional concern with the administration, it may very well be a barrier to entry. The additional concern that we have is the one we expressed in the discussion matrix, and that is that it applies to the driver. While I might vote against any version of this, it makes more sense in our view to apply it to the company, because we think it will have an unintended consequence to make all existing taxi drivers have commercial insurance. Councilmember Pennington.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I don't agree with the comments that it's discriminatory. if the companies, the existing taxi companies are required to have commercial insurance, and hopefully the amendment is written so that the drivers only have to carry if the owner of the vehicle is not insuring it, so it wouldn't be discriminatory. So isn't that correct, that all the current taxi companies do have commercial insurance or have met the uninsured or self-insurance requirements? I guess a certain amount of net worth or whatever, I don't know which are required.
You're correct, sir. The way that we read this amendment, and please clarify if that's not correct, Councilmember Martin, the way that we read this amendment was that it was requiring the drivers to go out and purchase it, that it wasn't an option for the permittee to purchase it up to the drivers. The drivers were required to carry it, which is distinct from all of the other vehicle for hire categories.
Am I allowed to answer?
I certainly yield to Councilmember Martin.
The purchasing decision is a business decision by the company and their employee, not by the city of Houston. So whatever methodology they take, whether they put that onus on the driver or whether they absorb that as a company, that's a business decision that they take. What I tried to do is to make sure there was no gray in any of these areas. This is purely black and white. So if we do this, there is no gray that somewhere down the road a lawyer can contest this and make an argument. So my point in putting in the driver is that if the company decides that they take like they do in the taxi cab industry, as you just pointed out, if they take the coverage and assume that as part of their cost of doing business, then that's totally different. So but that's a business decision that the company with the driver makes, not the city of Houston. What I wanted to do was put it in as the driver as a default to the individual if the company does indeed not take on that commercial policy payment.
Is that what the amendment provides for?
Yes, sir.
I respectfully disagree, sir. In Chapter 46, we make all of the requirements for the business on the permittee, because the permittee is the one that we have the relationship with.
Mr. Pennington, the time is yours. I think the city attorney has a request to respond as well. If you would-
Yeah, that'd be great, because it seems confused right now. I'm sure he can clarify.
I'm fearful I might confuse it more. Something that's missing here in the discussion is pretty fundamental. If the driver is not on their app, they're going to be outside the course and scope of their employment, and no coverage is going to apply in that instance, except their regular automobile liability coverage.
Councilor Pennington, you have further questions?
Well, I don't think that's the question we're asking.
Well, but I think it's integral to this issue, because there's not going to be, no insurance company is going to cover them if they're outside the course and scope.
Well, I don't think we really have, all due respect, I don't think we have any decisions on what course and scope means for this particular kind of activity, because it's new in Texas. I mean, ordinarily, if you're driving to work, you know, you're on personal business, but here it's kind of part and parcel of what you're doing. I don't know, it could present some new questions. I know that there are a number of lawyers, I'm sure, who love to argue, but I don't think it's that cut and dry. So, thanks.
Councilmember Bradford.
Thank you. I think it's going to get deeper, because what Mr. Feldman just said, I agree 100%. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. See, the Costello Amendment talks about app being on or off. But if your app is off, that insurance company is going to say exactly what Mr. Feldman said, you outside of course and scope. And Councilman Martin, you said that don't leave a loophole for lawyers to argue points. Well, lawyers got to make a living too. And what we're doing today, though, is setting prime, fertile ground for lawyers to say, you know, look, they knew what they were doing. Taxis carry commercial insurance. Ms. Pies, has any private passenger automobile insurance companies advised you or given to you in writing that they are going to cover drivers when their vehicles are used for commercial purposes?
Using commercial insurance or personal insurance?
Personal insurance. Has any private passenger automobile insurance carrier advised you, or more particularly given to you in writing, that their company is going to cover